avoid delays towards the end. Yeah. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. We are very delighted to welcome Dr. Navneet Kaur, who will be leading today's session on qualitative analysis. Dr. Navneet Kaur is an associate project officer and learning experience researcher at UNESCO MGIT. She holds a PhD in educational technology from IIT Bombay and is an excellent qualitative researcher. Her doctoral research was rooted in qualitative analysis within a collaborative setup, exploring how learners navigate uncertainty management in educational contexts. And her broader research interests lie at the intersection of technology enhanced learning and the development of pan domain thinking skills. She is particularly passionate about designing edtech solutions that extend beyond cognitive learning to address motivation, social, and affective aspects of education. A very big thank you to Dr. Navneet for sharing her expertise with us today. Welcome, Navneet.
Thank you, Romana. And hello, everyone. Thanks all who have joined. Okay, as Romana has already introduced me, I'll just talk about the topic that we will be covering today. Um, One second, just give me 1 second. It's visible, right? Romana or Alicia, if you can
Yes, it's visible.
confirm.
Yes.
Yes. Fine. Okay, today we will be talking about foundations of qualitative research. Um, let's talk about learning objectives of this session. Yeah, once we complete the session, we'll expect that you all can distinguish between the two the research approaches, the qualitative and quantitative approaches based on some key characteristics. Then, second is to being able to identify different qualitative research designs. So, we'll talk about the major broad designs that are used in qualitative research. Third, we talk about one of the important techniques, that's thematic coding, that we use in many of the qualitative research designs, and we'll understand how to apply the process of coding by taking some examples. Then the fourth objective is that you should be able to assess the suitability of qualitative research techniques for your own research, the research questions that you are already in the process of designing, I'm sure. And fifth one is that we talk about the aspects of trustworthiness in qualitative research, the aspects of reliability, validity, and you'll be able to recognize what are the key considerations in order to ensure that your research is robust. Okay, so before we start, I'll just briefly talk about what you can expect out of the session and some participation guidelines. We'll follow a structured flow. So the flow will be as per the objectives that I have told you. So you can note down any questions that comes to your mind, preferably with slide numbers. So we'll try to cover a few questions at the end of the session if we get time. Otherwise, we'll address those questions in the doubt clearing sessions or over WhatsApp group. We can communicate that. Then, if you have any technical concerns or if there is any quick clarifications you need, you can use the chat function. When you'll be participating, we'll use the chat function in order to communicate with each other. And then this session, it is a hands-on and interactive session, so your participation is very important. So you look at some of the slides, which will be orange in color, the color that I have used to highlight this portion. So you can expect that your participation is required there. Then, of course, I think you all know that there is no penalty for incorrect answers. And since this is an introductory session, and of course, this is a session on methods, so correctness is not that we are targeting. So it's just that you need to participate. So yes, participation is important. And since this is the first session, so it will be introductory in nature. So the idea is that we can sensitize you to the different aspects of qualitative research and provide you little direction. But of course, you have to follow this up with some focused engagement of different topics, different methods, and we will guide you as you go ahead. Okay. Let us start with your participation only. So I want you all to reflect on your current understanding about how the qualitative and quantitative research differ from each other. Okay, I'll just give you an example. For example, one thing is that quantitative research uses numerical data, while qualitative research maybe focuses on descriptive data. So I would like all of you to write in the chat only what are your perceptions about the differences between the two. You can use such sentences like quantitative research dash while qualitative research dash. And I would also want you to think about the drawbacks and advantages of the methods to compare them. Okay, and I'll be monitoring the chat, so maybe take 1 or 2 minutes to do that. Go ahead. Maybe take 30 seconds more. Okay, thank you everyone who responded. Okay. Okay, so thank you everyone. So you did talk about different dimensions. I could see responses which says that quantitative is about so qualitative is about what and why of a research problem. Then some of you distinguished between the two, maybe on the basis of type of data you collect. Some also mentioned about the participation, smaller participation versus larger participation of the studies that you do. Then I could also see answers which talks about the different procedures and methods of conducting research, type of data, questionnaire, surveys, focus group for qualitative. So yes, thank you everyone for responding. So we'll talk about these different aspects, but we'll start with one of the examples here. So let us consider this research goal that you want to investigate the effect of a targeted teaching intervention on your participants' knowledge and confidence, maybe in applying probability concepts, okay, in context of mathematics education. So there can be two different kind of approaches, more than these two, but yeah, let's talk about these two different approaches. So one way to approach responding to this broader goal is that I start looking at the effect of the intervention. So when I say that what is the impact, I might look at the effect of the intervention by maybe doing the pre-post kind of study. Okay, I might see students' knowledge on the probability concepts before I use my intervention, and then I'll do a post test after an intervention is done, and then I might compare the two findings, do some statistical analysis. This is one approach that I can follow. The second approach that I might follow is that I try to understand the impact of my intervention by trying to understand how the participants have perceived the intervention. And of course, I might ask the participants about what was their experience, what they knew about probability before, and now how it has changed. So I might conduct some interviews. I might ask them to maintain some reflection journals. And after that, I might do some kind of analysis where I try to find out themes and some evidence to say that their confidence and knowledge of the concepts that has increased. So you might see that there are differences between two approach on various aspects. Let's first talk about the research goal. Now, in the first approach, we saw that the goal is to measure the extent of change, right? How much change has happened in their knowledge. Sorry, from before and after the intervention. But the nature of the goal for the second approach was to explore the nature of change. First was to the extent of change, and the second approach was to explore the nature of change in their understanding, their confidence. So we focused in approach one on the objective measurement of the impact, right? We looked at the numerical data, the statistical comparisons, but the focus in approach two was to gain some in-depth understanding of the participants' experience and perspectives. The first approach, what is the outcome of the first approach? So maybe we can generalize the findings showing that there was a statistically significant improvement in the knowledge and confidence levels using the statistical comparison methods. But in approach to our outcome would be that we would be able to give some rich, detailed description of how the the perceptions and knowledge it has evolved maybe over time, what are their perceptions, what worked for them, what was challenging for them, and hence we can get some thick descriptions of how the intervention worked for our participants, right? So then is the use of results. So in approach one, the results they provide a quantifiable evidence that workshop was effective. For example, we might be able to make claims like percentage. So this much percentage increase in confidence has happened because of the intervention. But we can use the the results and approach too by providing some contextual insights into what aspects of the workshop were valuable, how participants made sense of what they learned, and so on. Then, if we talk about implications, how can we use these results, right? So, in the first approach, we can use the results to justify the effectiveness of the workshop, maybe to the stakeholders by providing some measurable evidence of the learning gains. In the second one, we can use our findings in order to maybe refine the workshop or the intervention that we had designed by identifying which elements were meaningful for the participants, which needs to be changed. So as you see that both the approaches, they are giving something to us, but they are different on these different aspects: the goal, the focus, the outcomes, the results, and the implications. So when we see that these two approaches, these are the different goals that they are targeting, and accordingly we can see that the type of data that we collect, it's impacting the kind of data we collect. For the first approach, when we have to see the pre and post differences, we need to collect numerical data of the maybe how much marks they got in the pre and post test. So we need that data. In the second approach, we need some descriptive data. We need to maybe look at maybe we can also look at how they are solving the problems and how it has evolved how it has evolved during the intervention. We might look at the descriptions of their reflection journals, description of the interviews that we did them. So the data will of course differ. Similarly, as many of you have mentioned that the sample size will be larger in quantitative. So why? Because we see that the focus is different, and the kind of results how we are using them is to make some quantifiable evidence. So if you have to give some evidence if that something is working, of course you need to try it on more people so that you can make some conclusive claims about that. But in the second one, the sample size will be smaller because you'll have to obviously spend a lot of time with your participants, and you have to explore different dimensions, and therefore you might be able to do that with smaller number of participants. Again, the procedures, as I told, that will differ. One will rely on statistical procedures, while other on interpreting data, categorizing, organizing data. And in the first one, as we discussed, the participation interaction will be little because you are just looking at the pre and post outcomes. But in qualitative, you'll have to engage with participants in order to understand their meanings, their perspectives. So the participation interaction will be larger. So you can see that the kind of goal that we have will impact the kind of goal that we have, the focus that we want, the kind of outcomes and the results that we are expecting. That will impact the type of data we collect, the sample size, procedures, participants, and hence the overall approach. So from here, I'll just summarize that when we talk about qualitative research, the goals are different from that of the quantitative in the manner. In qualitative, we are more into understanding how and why phenomena occurs. Okay, so so basically one rule of thumb could be that we can look at the questions and maybe try to understand. So if we are looking at why and how and why of a phenomena, if we are trying to understand, then might be we want to go into the qualitative research approach. But when we are looking to generate some causality or relationship between different type of things, what happens if an intervention is given? Does the results increase or decrease? So that kind of relationships, if we are looking for, then it's towards the quantitative approach and not the qualitative. Then for qualitative, we are exploring multiple perspectives and subjective experiences. We are trying to develop theories or conceptual models, and we want to capture processes and meaning and rather than just outcomes. So when we're talking about processes and meanings, it will be difficult to generalize it to more people, and that is also not the goal of the qualitative research. But when we are trying to generalize findings to an entire population, then that will be towards the quantitative research methods. Okay, so I hope these differences and different dimensions which differentiate the two kind of approaches are clear, and many of you have already mentioned them in when I asked you the question. So, how these different things fall into different categories, that you can, I think, make sense of now. We'll just do a quick check, maybe look at these research questions, the data collection method, design, and approach, and tell me what kind of approach is being followed in these examples. So let's just quickly answer in the chat for the first question. So the question is, how do students emotionally respond to peer feedback in online learning? You collect student reflections, you analyze video data of learners, and the approach is that you analyze the textual content to identify emotions and interpret their facial expressions. So, what kind of approach is being followed?
Please keep writing in the message section. We are viewing your messages. Thank you.
Perfect. I think everyone agrees that it's the qualitative approach that is being followed. Okay, let's look at the second one. Maybe now you can respond for the second example. How does a new teaching strategy impact students' math problem solving accuracy? Here you do a pre and post test, you look at their scores, and you implement a pre and post test design with an intervention in between, and you do statistical analysis to determine the significance of the test scores differences. Yeah, I think it's clear. This is the example that we also took just now. Okay, I think some of you are responding for the third one. Okay, let's look at the third one. How do peer discussions influence conceptual understanding in physics? You collect the concept tests. Then you also look at the discussions that they do in the classroom. So you gather the discussion. The data that you use is the discussion transcripts. Design is that you use a pre-post test with structured along with the peer discussions, and you compare the test scores with qualitative insights from the discussion patterns. Perfect. I think many of you got the gist. So, in third one, of course, we are using both qualitative and quantitative approaches. You have used the term mixed approach. Yes, we call them mixed method approach also. I can see triangulation. We'll talk about this concept if others don't know, but yeah, agree. Okay. Thank you. Perfect. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, Okay, so now let's talk about different qualitative research designs that exist. Um, Okay, so there are different kinds of research designs that exist. I'll talk broadly some of them, and we'll try to understand how these different approaches they differ from each other. So while you read them and while I talk about these approaches, be mindful that there will be overlaps between these approaches. But we need to understand what are those unique aspects on which they differ and how you can meanwhile also reflect on your research questions and think about whether they might fit, which kind of designs might fit for your kind of your research questions also. Okay, so let's start with the first one. So first is the narrative research design. So in this kind of research, you focus on individuals' stories or narratives and try to understand how people they construct meaning. So you pay attention to their experiences by the method of focusing on their stories. You ask about how about their experiences, and they'll tell their stories. They'll narrate them, and through that capturing of their stories and narratives, you try to make sense of the phenomena that is under consideration. So what kind of data you'll collect? So you'll have to do in-depth interviews. Maybe you look at their autobiographies if they exist, maybe the journals that they maintain, and then you analyze it, storing that data, identifying themes. What kind of themes would be relevant in this? In the stories or narratives of people, the turning points, the personal growth, their identity shifts. So if you're looking for these kind of questions, narrative research is what you can opt for. The second one is the ethnographic research. So in this research design, we focus on examining the cultures or the cultural or the social groups in their natural settings. So the important part is that you have to consider the culture and the very context specific details when you are investigating your research question. So here, what is required is you would require to immerse in that natural setting, and researchers they require to engage deeply with the community. So they'll document behaviors, they look for what traditions are being followed, how the interactions are happening in that natural setting among the people. So your analysis will involve the coding of the cultural themes. You will create the descriptions of what is happening, what kind of dynamics exist, and then you try to interpret the social norms from an insider's perspective. Why insider's perspective? Because you will be part of that community and as being part of the community, you are trying to understand the cultures, the social groups, and how the phenomena may be happening within that natural setting. Then the third design is the case study research. So here the focus is on investigating a special cases, right? These special cases, this could be it could be a specific individual, it could be a group, it could be an event or a phenomena within a real life context. And you'll use multiple data sources like documents, interviews, observations, and there can be different techniques, but usually you look for patterns. You might have different cases and you do some cross case synthesis and analysis and try to find the theoretical connections. And when you do case study research, you often explore complex content dependent issues. So I'll take an example. For example, maybe as a teacher in your classroom, your intervention method that you use is really working for most of your students, but you see that there is like 2 or 3 students for which your method is not working, and it's being constantly it's not working for them. So this is something interesting that you want to investigate, right? So this is a special case where a thing which is working for most of the students is not working for a few of them. So you can maybe take this case and you can start investigating. You might talk to them. You might also observe what they are doing when you are teaching. So by observing or investigating a special case, you will try to understand maybe the different kind of context where a method might fail or maybe work. So you can look for these cases. If they are interesting to you, then you can use the case study research to investigate them for your research questions. Then the other is the phenomenological research. So here it is similar to the other methods, but here you focus on the lived experiences of individuals regarding a particular phenomena. But the purpose is that you get an overall picture of the phenomena. So in order to get overall picture, you'll of course you'll need to capture the essence of the variations. What are the different dimensions? Which are the critical ones? How they differentiate from each other? So your focus is on investigating one phenomena from the lived experiences of individuals, and for that you will have to capture the variations in order to talk about that phenomena in its totality. So that's the phenomenological research. Then we have a grounded theory research. So grounded theory, it proposes that careful observation of the social world, it can lead to construction of theory. So sometimes you also want to develop a theory about something for which so there will be many concepts for which there are no established theories, but you want to really study them in depth, and from that study you want to formulate the theories. You want to see that what kind of insights are coming out, but for more than just one small specific group. So in grounded theory, the purpose is that you want to construct a theory, and this can be about a process, about an action or an interaction. And since you are looking for construction of theories, you will have to do iterative cycles of data collection, interviews, observations, documents, and of course analysis. And while you're doing these data collection, constantly you have to do analysis so that your process of collection, what kind of more data you want to connect, how the findings are changing with different data collection. So you have to do constant comparative analysis. So if you're looking for this kind of, if you have focus on these kind of questions where you want to understand theory about something, then you can opt for the grounded theory method. So these are the broad research designs. There are others also, but most of them will fit into some variation of these broad research designs. And each of these designs also, as we saw, that in each of these designs, the focus that we want to pay is also deciding the kind of data that we are collecting and the kind of analysis that we can do with that. So the research design, selecting a research design will also help you in deciding what kind of data you can collect, how to analyze them. And some of the methods, for example, the grounded theory method, this grounded theory is looked at in both senses, as a research design and as a method also. So if you read more about grounded theory, you will come to know that it also defines how you can step by step do your analysis in order to find or construct theory. So some of these designs, they'll also dictate the steps and the methods to perform your research. Okay, so these are the broad designs, and you might have seen that we did talk about the coding aspect in many of these designs. Like if there is some case study and you have some data, you might look for some themes in the data, right? Even if you're doing some grounded, if you are using the grounded theory approach, you are iteratively collecting data, and maybe you are looking for some themes and how they are emerging with time. So in most of these designs, we do codings in order to identify themes. So coding and thematic coding is a very common method that you will use across many of these methods. So maybe we'll talk about this method in detail today. And once you go back and look at different designs, you can also identify what other methods that can be used, and how thematic coding, it also differs across various methods. So I'll talk about thematic coding now. So coding, it is a systematic and organized process of categorizing, labeling and analyzing textual or visual data, and purpose is to identify patterns, themes and meaningful units of information within the data. So once you find some themes, they will help you organize in organizing the principles that make sense of the data, and it will also provide a framework to you using which you can actually interpret and also report your findings. Okay, so we'll do the thematic coding. We'll understand the thematic coding by doing the coding together. Okay, so let's engage in some practice of thematic coding. So read this question. So what challenges do students face in their first year of higher education? We'll take this example of this RQ to do the thematic coding for our data. Okay, so I'll give you 1 minute. Please, everyone, read this. These are the passages from the interview of two participants. I want you all to read it and just message done once you are done reading.
Navneet, there's a request to maximize the slide. Can
Okay,
you do
yes,
that?
yes, I will do that. Just let me know when most of them are done, okay?
Yeah.
Sure.
Navneet, there is also a clarification question. Would you like to take it at the end of the session?
I think it would be better to take it at the end so that others can also.
Sure.
Yeah. Let's take some questions at the end.
Okay. I'll make note of them.
Okay.
I think you can go ahead, most of them.
Okay. Okay, fine. So, okay, let's talk about the different steps in thematic coding. So, first step is the data familiarization. So, we always begin by becoming familiar with the data. So, what does it mean? That you will, of course, if you have done some interviews, you will transcribe them, and then once you have the transcripts, you'll have to read through the transcripts. If you had taken some notes, the field notes, or you have some documents, you'll have to go through all of that data multiple times to get a sense of your content, and you take notes and highlight relevant passages. So this stage will help you to maybe find out the important parts of the data which you really want to come back to. Sometimes your research questions are not very well formed. Okay, so when you look at the data, you can also refine your research questions. You can find what is interesting. So this step will help you in doing all that. So the second step is the initial coding. So once you have your transcripts ready, when you do the initial coding, this will involve reading through the data and assigning some preliminary labels or code. Okay, so the goal is that you capture the key idea and you do not over categorize it very soon. So by over categorizing means we'll not jump into interpretations just in the first step. But so what do? So you code at this stage using some descriptive maybe phrases that is very closely tied to the data. Okay, I'll just we'll start with this excerpts that you read. So I have just chunked them into different lines so that we can start looking at each of the lines and think about what codes can be given to them. Okay, so the first one was my biggest struggle was time management among different subjects and planning and figuring out what works. So what I wrote is that I could see two things. The learner is talking about difficulty managing time across subjects, and second is planning and figuring out effective study approach. So although I did not change much, you can see, but I tried to write some consolidated code, which mostly matches with what the learner is saying, right? So I would want you all to try this for the second line, which is I underestimated how long assignments would take, missed deadlines, and felt stressed. Just give it a try. So also why I did two codes in the first one, because our question was what challenges learners experience. So I could see two different challenges in the first line itself. So I segregated them. That's why I have two codes for the first line. Okay, go ahead.
तुम बैठो के साथ बैठो आती बैठो बोले क्या रोना है मैं
I'll repeat, I underestimated how long assignments would take, missed deadlines, and felt stressed. So be careful that we want to write an initial code which is closer to what the learner is saying, and try not to do a lot of interpretation here, or you will miss important information in your first step only. So we don't need to over categorize, but write a phrase, something which is in a consolidated form but conveys what the person is saying.
सादिया माँ आओ तेरे कने आओ
Okay, let's thank you everyone for trying. Okay, so what I wrote for this is misjudging assignment duration led to missed deadlines and stress. I could see many of you writing different codes. I'll just say some of them. Some of you had written time management, stress management, learning styles, long assignments leading to challenge, inability to complete Time. Okay, so okay, let's talk about these codes a bit. So some of you wrote time management, right? So here, if I've written time management, maybe I am missing the point of that the problem is actually that the student underestimated the length of the assignments, the duration it may take. Some of you have written stress management. Um, if I reread this excerpt, I underestimated how long assignments would take, missed deadlines, and felt stressed. So I think our question was, what challenges do they face, right? So I could see that the challenge is about underestimating assignments, which led to deadlines and feeling stressed. Maybe he is not feeling challenged about how to manage stress. So what we did here, maybe we did over interpretation at this stage, and this over interpretation may lead to one, maybe missing the important information. Second, maybe interpreting something which is not said. So the first step, my point is that in the first step, we have to be very careful that we are writing the code which is very closer to what the person is saying, because also we are doing this coding for this first time. It is really important that we do this initial coding carefully so that we don't miss the information in the first pass only. Why this is important? Because as we'll go forward, we'll not look at the excerpts, we'll only look at the codes to do further coding. So if you will lose information, or you will do some, or you will convey some wrong information, then it will lead to a chain of maybe findings that are not relevant to your problem, or which are not correct. Okay, so let's give another try for this third one, which is, unlike school where everything was structured, I had to plan my own schedule.
Are you able to see the chats, Navneet?
Yes, yes,
Great.
I'm able to see. Maybe 2 or 3 more responses. Okay, thank you everyone. Okay, so how I coded is that struggle with self-scheduling after moving from a structured school system or a system. What other responses that we got is self-time management, planning my own tasks and schedules, lack of provided structure, making schedules, planning, monitoring, execution, and evaluation. So let's talk about one or two of these. So, for example, I could see planning my own tasks and schedules. So, one is that, of course, the person is talking about planning, difficulty in planning the schedule, that is correctly captured. But there is one subtle information that the person is saying, that when he's comparing this thing to what he was able to do in the school and not at this time. So missing that information might result in maybe missing some important information when you actually analyze it further. So maybe that information can be included in the first stage. Then I could see lack of provided structure. Here, a person is talking about him facing challenge with structuring or making schedule, or maybe you can call planning on his own. But if we say that lack of provided structure, here we are making a jump to a conclusion that maybe he is facing this challenge because he is not provided with structure. We don't know if it is correct or incorrect. And we are talking about the challenge. We are not talking about the reasons behind challenge. Okay, so if we do a lot of interpretation at this stage, then it might be that we are interpreting something which is not the focus of our research. So one point I want to make here, that it is also very important to go back to your research question again and again in order to ensure that you are coding it as per your research questions. Okay, let's see all these codes. So, for example, for balancing studies with clubs and making friends was also tough. I coded it as struggle to manage academics and social activities. I struggle with new way of studying and time management, doing so things together, adjusting to different study methods and managing time, and so on. Many of you might not also agree with me on those codes. So we talk about what to do when there are different kinds of codes that are emerging with different researchers. But let's move with these codes further. So this third step is, once you have done the initial coding, then you have to review your codes again and modify the codes to identify preliminary themes. So in this step, you review your codes, refine them for clarity, and maybe so that you can start recognizing some patterns. That is the aim. One second. Right, so for the first one, as you saw that I wrote difficulty managing time across subjects and in planning and figuring out effective study approach. So I'll refine this code as maybe managing time to study multiple subjects, planning and regulating study strategies. Right, so he was saying figuring out effective study approaches, planning. So I combine those things and I use the term regulating. Maybe I am well versed with a literature which talks about regulation, and I use that term. So I try to refine the code further so that it can capture what is being said. For the second one, which is misjudging assignment duration led to missed deadlines and stress, I wrote it poor time estimation leading to deadline pressure. It's just a refined version. It's saying the same thing. Maybe can you do it for the third one? The code is struggle with self-scheduling after moving from a structured school system. I'll repeat, struggle with self-scheduling after moving from a structured school system. Great, thanks. Some of you wrote that shifts between school and university, self-scheduling in less structured system. So how I wrote is transitioning to self-directed scheduling. So I use the term transitioning maybe to capture the essence that some transitioning is has been happening from from a previous to a new system, and the new and capturing the aspect of self-directed scheduling, because person is talking about planning, scheduling things on the own. So this is how I try to refine the code so that it captures the different aspects, and it is also capturing the essence of the entire thing that the person is saying. Similarly, for struggle to move, manage academics and social activities, I'll find it to academic social balance. For the eighth one, if you see difficulty in finding balance between studies and social life, it is very similar to the fourth one, struggle to manage academics and social activities. So at this stage, refining the code helped me find some similarity and between these codes. So I also, since they are saying the similar things, I use the same code for them, academic social balance. Next is adjusting to different study methods and managing time. I broke it into adapting to new study methods, managing time to do multiple activities. You saw that while I was doing the initial code for the first one, I wrote two codes for the first one, but I did not write two codes for this fifth one. So while you're doing initial code, you might miss these opportunities, and you might miss doing separating different codes. So when you do the iteration, you do the refined code, you can find out these things, and you can recode them or break the codes. So these things will happen when you start refining codes. You will find the similarities between different codes. You might break the codes. You might refine the wordings that start matching with the different other initial codes. So these things will happen when you refine the codes. Then next step is that now we will start grouping the codes into themes. So in this step, the codes that share common meanings or address similar aspects of the research question, they are clustered into broader themes, and this will help you to move from the fragmented codes or the emerging themes into some meaningful categories. So now, as you see that I removed the initial columns, right? So at this stage, when you have refined the codes, I have done it one time, you might do it more than one time, okay? So it could be an iterative process. So after refining, once you have your refined codes, then you will not look at the previous codes. Okay, so from this step onwards, we'll start looking at the codes only and then try to interpret and make meaning of it. So as you saw that we had the code in line 4 and 8 which are same. So we can clearly see that there is one common theme that's emerging, that is that students, they find difficulty in balancing academic and social activities. Okay. Similarly, there are other codes like managing time to study multiple subjects, poor time estimation leading to deadline pressure, managing time to do multiple activities. These are then combined into, I wrote the term time management here, because every one of these codes are talking about time management. Then let's skip this for a time. I'll just show you that how different themes will start emerging. So I have, by grouping the codes, I have grouped those codes and found some emerging themes like time management, balancing academic and social activities, adapting to new teaching and learning methods, developing self-regulated study strategies. Okay, now once these themes emerge, then you will refine these themes. So again, this iterative process should go on. Once you completely refine your groups, you see that there is coherence, you see that these are relevant to your research questions. So you'll do it multiple times. Right, I'll just give you one example that there was a code adaptation to new system. So I just modified that, adapting to different teaching and learning methods, because their participants, they were specifically discussing about adapting to a particular aspect of a system, the teaching method. Earlier it was rote learning, they said, and now it's a different kind of method. So I modified that theme in this stage. And similarly for time management, I made it managing academic tasks, because both the participants, they were talking about very specific kind of time management, study multiple subjects, estimation of assignments, okay, allocation of academic tasks, doing multiple academic activities. So that's why I refined the code so that it can capture the essence of what is being said. So the last, not the last step, but then you start describing these themes. So you can see that time this code of managing academic tasks is talking about different aspects of time management, right? There are two different aspects. You could see that the person is talking about estimating time and managing multiple tasks at one time. So you will look at this this group of the codes and the emerged theme that came, and then you will try to write a definition kind of thing for your theme. So for example, I wrote that learners struggle with estimating time for a big task and managing multiple tasks efficiently. So what you have to do is you have to look at the different group of codes and the theme, and you have to make a consolidated definition so that it could capture the essence of what is being said. Similarly, for developing self-regulated study strategies, I am defining it that learners face difficulty in performing self-regulation tasks like planning, adjusting study schedules. So these aspects like planning, study schedules, they might come from your grouping of the codes that you had done. And the last step is about ensuring trustworthiness. So there are various strategies like member checking, audit trails, reflexivity, intercoder agreement. I'll briefly talk about it at the end. Let's move to the next aspect, and we'll come back to this slide at the end. Okay, so I'll briefly talk about now how to choose an appropriate method. Okay, so you now know about the difference between the different approaches, maybe broadly what kind of qualitative approaches exist, and you know that for a specific kind of research goal, there can be different ways of investigating them. Okay, so when you have to identify which research methodology that fits for you, you will for different questions. For example, what is my purpose? What bigger problem do I want to resolve? What kind of results do I expect or hope to contribute? Right? As we discussed in the first example, the research goal might be about, are you looking for why or how kind of questions or the causes? So you might somewhere lie on this spectrum. If you are towards the extreme left, it might be about so causes is not the very correct term, but yeah, it will be towards quantitative approaches, and as you move towards the left, it will be qualitative approaches. Similarly, you look at what are your personal beliefs. Are you do you think that you are just looking for very static? You want to generalize your findings. If you have believed that most of the learners they will accept your intervention in the same way, so you will not have to go to each of these students and ask what they are feeling, how the different contextual factors might affect their learning. So you will just maybe look at the pre and post for more number of learners. So what are your personal beliefs about what will be the outcomes and what are the purposes of research will also help you identify which methodology may fit. And of course, there will be some personal biases. It's similar to what I discussed about the beliefs. You might be more interested in quantitative approaches because, of course, what are your beliefs? So there will be some personal biases. You can be mindful of those. Then for research design, you need to think about questions like what kind of results do I hope to contribute. For qualitative, if you are trying to come up with a theory or explanation to better understand a research area, you might go for grounded theory approach. If you want to understand culture and processes of a group of stakeholders, you can look at the ethnographic approach. Similarly, if you are trying to understand experiences of of people for regarding particular phenomena, you may look for the phenomenography approach. Okay, and then also you can be mindful of the other implicit hypotheses or assumptions that you have. So if you think that the retrospective interviews, or if you do some interviews after the intervention, then learners might not be able to tell the actual experience about their actual experiences. Their what they say will be filtered. So maybe you can look for your on task behaviors. Okay, instead of interviews, um, uh, you actually capture data while they are engaging in the task, and then you analyze it. So these hypotheses and assumptions that you have can also help you decide what kind of design is appropriate for you. Then regarding methods or the specific techniques, you can ask yourself questions like what are the appropriate participants and context and why. Your research questions and your chosen research design will help you identify answer to this question. So what should I study or measure? Or where do I believe the evidence lie? So when you answer these questions, you'll start understanding from what are the different sources of data that are valid for your study. Then what will I do to the data to get the theory or explanation or understanding? So you have interview data. Do you really need to find quotes from the data, or you really want to go into the students' video data to look at their facial expressions to understand how they, to form your theories or form your explanations. So this question that what will I do with the data will help you answer what procedures you want to take. Then what are the typical data collection methods or analysis techniques of the chosen tradition? For example, if you have already thought of the grounded theory method, so when you go into the details of that method, that will also help you choose the correct research methods. So ask yourself these questions and try to answer them and see where you fit, what kind of techniques you fit in, what methodology you fit in, what designs you fit in. Let's come back to this question afterwards. I'll just quickly talk about the aspect that that was the last step, the trustworthiness in qualitative research. So when we talk about trustworthiness, there are different concepts. You might have heard about validity, reliability, generalizability. So in qualitative research, validity, we use the term credibility. So the purpose is that you need to ensure that the findings they are accurately they reflect the participants' experiences. So there is a misconception that qualitative research it lacks validity due to the subjective nature. But you can use various methods. So there is member checking. Member checking means once you have, for example, got your codes, you can actually go to your participants, show them their coding, and you can ask them that I have interpreted, this is what you said, and this is how I have interpreted. Is this what you really meant? So they can also help you, they can help in checking whether the interpretations that you have made are actually correct, valid. Then someone also mentioned triangulation. Triangulation is that you collect data from various sources and then you can compare and analyze the data by keeping the data sources side by side and see that whether these different sources are saying the same story which I am telling. For example, you ask learners how were their experiences about so what challenges they face, right? The question that we were discussing in thematic coding. And then you might go to the teacher also, and teacher can tell that yes, students, they are not able to complete the assignments and they take more time. So there is some validity happening there. Two people are saying the similar thing. So that's called triangulation. Then the thick descriptions to enhance validity. When you give more details, the context, what the person was saying, when they were saying, and you're giving very detailed descriptions, that will also help in validating your findings. Then is the reliability. So reliability is that ensuring the consistency in the data collection analysis. Right. So misconception is that qualitative research is unreliable because different researchers may interpret data differently. So you also had seen that many of us, and most of us were coding the same excerpt in a different manner, right? So how to ensure that we all are doing the reliable coding? So you use methods like audit trails, reflexivity, intercoder agreements. For example, what you can do is, like, if there are multiple researchers, right, then different people can code the data. You can see how much the data is matching with each other. Then you can have very detailed discussions with each other, why one person coded it in that way and why the other person in a different way, and then together you refine the code. So there you will be able to address these variations and come up with a code with which more of the coders agree with. So these kind of methods you can take up to make your research more reliable. And third is generalizability. And some people say that qualitative research is not useful because it cannot be generalized to large populations. Right. So reality is that when we are doing a qualitative research, the generalization is not actually our aim. What our aim is that we want to get very deep context-rich understandings. So how your findings will gain relevance? When it is detailed, it is contextualized, the contextualized descriptions are given, and in this way you allow others to access their applicability to different settings. So different people can look at your research, in what context it was done, and they can replicate it to their settings, find how it's working for them. So when we talk about qualitative research, we are interested in applicability of findings beyond the study context. I hope this is clear to you. It's 7:15. I think I'm done with the session. We can take a few questions. Alicia, Romana?
Yes. Yeah, Romana, would you like to?
No, that was an amazing session. Thank you so much, Navneet. The floor is open for questions.
Actually, there was one question, Navneet, in the meantime, which might have gone up in the chat. So, shall I read it out to you?
Yes, yes.
Okay. What are the differences between observations and ethnography?
Okay. So when we talk about ethnography, so there are two concepts. One is the research designs, and then there are some techniques of doing when you are analyzing the data, right, or when you are collecting the data. So when you talk about design is a very broad concept which talks about all these aspects. What you want to what kind of questions you can investigate, and for those kind of questions or the focus that you have, what kind of data to collect, how, what are the different techniques. So ethnography is actually a research design, so it will tell you how to do a specific kind of research, which is the, as I told you, that the unique aspect of this design is that researchers will be part of the phenomena that's happening in the natural settings. And for ethnographic designs, you are doing the kind of research which in where you are actually looking at the culture of that setting. You are interested in the social norms of that setting. So when you are very interested in understanding the real context of a phenomena in their natural settings, as a researcher, then you'll have to be present in that setting for longer period of time. So this design will tell you, ethnography is actually a design which tell you how to do all these things. Observation, on other hand, it's a technique. For example, it's a data collection technique. You will be doing observations when maybe in the ethnographic design also you will be doing observations, but in a very specific context. You will be with the participants in their real settings, but you can also do observations maybe in a class, in a workshop, in a one day workshop, right? You as a researcher might be present in the class. You are observing what different students are doing. Observation can also be done maybe in an intervention which is a 5 day intervention. So those settings will not fit into the design of ethnography. So observation is actually a technique, data collection technique, for example. Ethnography is a research design. Hope I answered the query.
Yeah, there's another similar question from Felix actually. What is the difference between research design and research methods? Please explain in the context of grounded theory.
Okay,
You've already,
so yeah, I'll just quickly talk about it. When we talk about design, it's a broader approach. So within qualitative methodology, there are these broad approaches like grounded theory, ethnography, and when we talk about method, it is about very specific techniques or procedures that you follow within these broader designs. For example, in grounded theory, which is a design, there is a specific method how you do that. For example, you do specific coding there, like we learned about initial coding, right? In grounded theory, it's called axial coding. Similarly, there is a very specific way how you move from one code to another, and then how you go about generating the theory. So that procedure is actually what is determined by the method, and design is a broader term. So it's methods can there can be various methods under one design. If that clears.
thank you. I think Vidya.
Yeah, I think we can take more questions. Maybe if there is some doubt solving session or.
Can I ask a question?
Vidya's hand is raised.
Yes.
Okay, we'll take this last question.
Shall I go ahead?
Yes, Vidya. Go ahead.
It was a wonderful session. Thank you for that. Actually, I'm doing a project on why Indian students are attracted and desire. Why do they desire to go abroad and study? I'm doing.
Sorry, why do they desire?
Why Indian students are dreaming about going abroad and studying?
Okay.
What are the sentiments behind their desires? I've collected data from the students, parents, alumni, teachers, non-teaching faculty. Can I use this method, the thematic coding which is told right now, to find out what is the emerging sentiment in the overall? Can I use this technique which you told right now?
Surely you can use the technique, but I would suggest that before that you need to think about the design that you want to follow, right? So if you want to analyze their sentiments, it could be you can use various designs. If you have data, then you might look at what kind of so are you really trying to find out a theory which talks about what are the broad sentiments lead to these kind of behaviors, or are you really trying, or you have a data and you have a very specific cases, contrasting cases, and you want to analyze them. So once you have the design in mind, then what specific method you use will be more clearer and appropriate. For example, coding is very one aspect of the method that you use. There can be various methods which use this specific technique of coding. As I told you, in grounded theory also you can use coding, but the steps might vary slightly. Then even if you're doing case study analysis, there also you can do coding, but of course the steps might slightly change. So maybe think about design first, and then choose the appropriate the method or the technique that you can use.
what you
I hope that
explained right
answers
now
you.
was, I felt it was more apt for the project which I'm doing, for to decode the emerging sentiments,
Yes,
importance.
of course. I mean, if you have interview data, then you can look at the data. You can have some frameworks which help you identify the sentiments in a textual content. Using that framework, you can use the method of thematic coding to identify those things. That can be a probable technique. Yeah. Okay, I think we'll take other questions afterwards. Maybe if you can give we still have 10 minutes. We'll do a very quick quiz. It's like a few 4 or 5 questions. And then,
Navneet,
yeah,
I think we'll put the quiz on Moodle and we'll ask them to attempt it at their own pace. Is that okay, or do you want to do it right now?
it is okay. I mean, if we want to utilize these 10 minutes, we can do that. Otherwise, yeah.
There are a few questions. I think it will be nice if you could address them now.
Sure,
We
sure,
have
sure.
a few
Then
in 10 minutes.
that we can do.
We can put up the quiz on Moodle and everyone can attempt it. And if you
Yes, yes.
okay, so
Yeah, it will not take more time, more than
yeah,
10 minutes.
okay. Okay, Anisha, I think you can ask the questions. You can go through the chat and ask the questions.
Sure.
I think we can choose questions which everyone can relate at this time. Maybe not very specific to one RQ.
Yeah, okay.
We can, yeah.
Okay, okay. Then Navneet, I think it's better you go through the chat and decide what to answer.
Okay.
Other questions also will be answered, but maybe in the doubt solving session or discussion forum or the WhatsApp group.
Yes, yes. Is it true that interviews, questionnaires are qualitative methods of data collection? Yes, of course, interviews are qualitative methods of data collection. Then, when you say questionnaires, they can be both qualitative and quantitative methods. For example, if you are giving some questionnaires and you are analyzing the and it's an open-ended questionnaire, then you are analyzing the responses of your learners. You'll have to use qualitative techniques. But if you are giving them some questionnaires, maybe with some Likert scale. So there is an instrument called Likert scale where you give them very specific options. They have to choose those options, and later you can actually quantify those options to understand their perception. So it's not open ended. So in that case, you might use quantitative methods to analyze the data. So questionnaires can be both qualitative and quantitative depending on how you have designed them, what you are asking. Okay, how would you go about thematic coding non-text based data, for example, video and audio? Okay, so if it's a non-text based data, for example, if it's a video, right? So you can so your research questions, they will decide what may be parts of the video that you want to analyze, or maybe what parts of the audio you want to analyze. So the first step, as I told you, was data familiarization, right? So that step can also help you identify those portions. And of course, maybe what specific technique you use to identify what are the relevant parts of video or data. That will help you find out what are the relevant parts, and once you do that, you can transcribe your video data or the audio data. And once you have transcriptions of that relevant data with you, it will be in a textual form. Then you can use different methods to analyze that. But yeah, there are different techniques. You can also directly so there are also some applications which help you to code the video data directly. Some qualitative data analysis applications that can also be used to analyze the data directly. Okay. Is there any minimum or maximum sample size for qualitative research? So, direct answer is no. So, we also have qualitative research with only one participant. So, it depends on what question you are trying to investigate and in what depth you are looking at those at those RQs. For example, if I want to understand that in 1 hour of lecture, how the learners' sentiments are changing and why they are changing, at what points they are changing, what is triggering them. So I am looking at a very nuanced, I'm trying to find a very nuanced information, right? I'll have to look maybe at each second and each minute, and I'll have to analyze the sentiments and of the facial expressions if it's a video data. So that's a very nuanced information I'm trying to extract, and then I'm trying to interpret also a very complex idea, right? So I will be so in that case, I might not be able to have very large number of participants. That's one thing. Then if I'm doing a very case study analysis and it's only a one person who has a very interesting case, and I have to look at multiple things using that one specific case, and of course in that case there will be limited participants. So your research question, the depth and the kind of answers you are finding, what's the purpose, will determine the number of your sample size. Okay. Can you, Rumana, if you can see questions?
There's one question. So someone is asking how we can use AI and LLM in our qualitative research.
Okay, so of course we can use AI. So now, so one aspect is, now there are certain applications which have like inbuilt AI and LLM capabilities, and the kind of analysis that these applications are doing, they are more research oriented, coming from the data which is actually valid. So you can look for those applications. For example, there is an NVivo which now has these capabilities, and NVivo is used for qualitative data analysis. But of course, these are they can be paid applications. So you can look for relevant sources there, and then of course you can use apps like you can use these systems like ChatGPT and all to help refining your codes and maybe also coding the data. You can do that, of course, but you have to be present as a second eye to really evaluate whether the kind of codes that it's generating, it's relevant or not. So of course you can take help of the newer technology, but you have to be present as a researcher and see if it's relevant to your research.
Okay, thank you, Navneet. I think there's only one last question. If we cover this, I think most all the questions will be done. So, someone is asking, when we try out a new pedagogy, teacher will be a part of the design and delivery of the course. How to consider the experience and perception of the teacher? Will it be biased perception? So, now knowing this, how can we tackle this? Let's come to the solution. How do we avoid biases?
Yeah, so one thing is that asking this question in itself is showing that you are aware of, or you are aware of your biases, and you want to be considerate that those biases don't come in. So first, that realization and awareness is important. Then second, you also need to acknowledge that there are certain biases and your perceptions that will not change, or will not knowingly impact how you are interpreting the data, you're looking at the data. So in qualitative research, we have a term called reflexivity, positionality. So what does these terms mean? That the researcher itself, he is declaring what are his biases, how he is looking. So we also did the assignment, right, where you talked about your perceptions, you talked about your personal biases and how it might impact your design. So in research, you actually you declare your biases beforehand. We call them positionality statements sometimes, and then it's all about then everyone who is reading your research, your papers, they know that what kind of perceptions might have influenced your findings. So it's all about being it's all about making your research and your findings trustworthy. And of course, this what I have also mentioned in the slide, that for making your findings more dependable and reliable, you one of the methods is this reflexivity, declaring your biases, being mindful of them while coding and while doing the analysis.
I think Navneet also techniques like iterator reliability, where another coder comes in and codes a section of your data and then you check, and then you calculate a Cohen's kappa to check whether the codes are matching or mismatching. That is also another way to ensure that there is no bias, because there's another coder who doesn't know the scenario, who's only looking at the codes, the transcripts and not the videos, is coming into picture and coding with you. So
Yes, yes, exactly. So, of course, you have to bring in more researchers. You have to talk to different your research. You might have some research groups. So when you bring those people, discuss your findings with them. Use methods like intercoder agreements, as Romana said. That will help you address these biases.
okay,
Can I ask one question,
one last
Romana?
Sahana's. We'll just take Sahana's question and then we'll end the session.
Sure. Yes.
Yes, Sahana, go ahead.
Yes, so when I'm having two sections, if I'm teaching in the two sections of class, I need to have my subjects, I have to find out my control group and experimental groups are equivalent. So I do my analysis, and later on, if I want to increase my sample size, and if I go to different universities or different colleges, and if I try to do the same experiment, then how do I find out the equivalent students? Because when I'm teaching in my college, maybe I know what kind of students I have, how to find out whether I get the same set of students with same mindset or their performance level. How do I tackle this when I want to increase my sample size?
Thanks, Hannah. So you said that when it's students, you know what kind of students they are, right? So there might be some characteristics on which you are evaluating, or you're saying that you know your students. It may be their age group, it may be their mindsets, it may be
So
their
basically, when I'm
previous.
working on their cognitive level, so I will know what kind of technique I'm using. So I know how to select my students, my samples. When I go to different university, how do I do this?
So I think this is so there are so many things in your question. So one is that you said that you know your students, right? You know how to select your samples. So one thing that you have to be mindful about is that you'll have many perceptions about students, and then when you are selecting your students, those perceptions will be very strong there. So there are different sampling techniques that you can use, and there is a way of doing sampling that will help you that these biases are addressed, right? So now one thing is you can go back and read about the sampling. Second thing is, as you said, that you know the characteristics of your students. Now you have to really think that what are those characteristics. Those characteristics can actually help you determine your sample with even your own students whom you think you know, and of course the students in other places. So if you are looking at specific characteristics like age, their gender, their mindsets, so you might have to find out, or you have to make some instruments or questions where you can ask those questions to the people in different place, and you can find out which people which students or participants they are falling into the category of the population or the target that you're looking at. So you need to find those characteristics. You need to make questionnaires. You need to validate them, and then you can use it as a resource for doing the sampling. Plus, you have to go and look at different ways of doing sampling so that you address your biases and actually relevant these groups, different groups are being made when you are choosing your samples.
Yeah. I also want to add, so Sahana, when you're choosing your sample, you cannot be very selective about the sample because our broader goal is to be able to come up with claims that are generalizable to the broader uh, audience, or and so it's very important for you to, if you have some characteristics of a learner and some are just because of some cognitive level, if you say it's because of their prior knowledge, it's okay. But if you just say that these people are able to talk more, then you need to be able to justify in your research why such kind of a participants are important in your research study. And also, I would suggest you, if when you're going through research papers for your own literature review also, look at a subsection called as participants or sample size, and you can see how they have included participants in their study and how they have characterized them. And some of the characteristics are very key to the process. Like, for example, they have to be first or second year engineering students from so and so background, aged between so and so things, and having a prior knowledge of so and so things. So you may find people describing their sample size in such a way. Also, when you do this exercise for your own work, I think it's a good idea to also revisit why you want learners to be of a specific characteristics. How is it impacting your research question in a broader sense?
Exactly. Yeah, I think I would echo that. It's a very good technique that you look at the data and participant section of different papers, and you will really get an idea how sampling is done and how you ensure that it's a sample that relevant for your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Navneet. Thank you, Romana.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sahana. Okay. I think we have covered all the questions, and it was a very good session, Navneet. Thank you so much for taking out so much time and preparing, and also delivery, and also to be able to, be there for the doubt solving in this week. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for joining the class. And we'll be uploading this recording too.
Yes, thanks a lot. Thanks everyone for joining. And do attempt the quiz. It's like 10 minutes quiz. Maybe it will
It's
be.
graded; they have to.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's graded.
Okay.
So the reason we are putting it on Moodle is because some of them were not able to attend the session, and if they are not here, I mean, we'll be leaking the questions.
Yeah, yes, sure.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe I'll also say that there is one slide. Can you go like 50th slide? Maybe Romana? Sorry, sorry.
That's it. Yeah, you have the control.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you can revisit this slide. So, and you can rewrite. So, the assignment that you did, I think you might be able to connect to what you had written and how those different questions and aspects can help you really choose your methodology. So, maybe you can do that exercise again on your own. Think of your research questions again and choose your qualitative or quantitative or mixed method approach, and also try to give reasons and justifications of why that method. So earlier in the assignment you looked at very distinct aspects. Now you have to look at all these aspects together: the purpose, the goal, your worldviews, your biases, what constraints you have, and then you can start I mean you can reattempt on explaining what approach you are taking and why you are taking that approach. So just an exercise that you can do on your own afterwards. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much. We'll also post it on WhatsApp as a reminder. Yeah, Alicia, yeah, we'll post it as a WhatsApp activity. Okay.
Thank you everyone. Thank
Thank
you.
you. We'll close the session now. Thank you. Yeah, we'll share the slides, Laila.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Navneet. Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you. Bye.
Alicia. Bye.
Sadia, you can close the recording. Sadia, you can also remove this participant, I think. Yeah, thank you.
Wait,
Okay.
wait, I didn't stop the
Yeah,
recording.
yeah, it's fine, it's fine. It's okay, you can stop recording.